All right. Members, this meeting of the House Government Operations Committee for March 10, 2025 will come to order. Clerk, please take the roll. And members, if you haven't already, please don't forget to punch in your code. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Chairman, there are 11 members present. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much for that. Members, before we begin, are there any personal orders or announcements? All right, seeing none. We've got a few items on the calendar today. Most of these bills are before us for review purposes, and then we'll have two sunset bills to wrap it up. The first item today is House Bill 683 by Leader Lamberth. Do we have a motion? We have a motion. We have a second. Leader Lamberth, please ignore and present your bill.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, very straightforward bill. This allows for an enhanced armed guard license. We do not currently have that in statute, and this would be an additional option out there for those that are armed guards.
Members, you have heard an explanation of the bill. Do we have any questions? Seeing none, we are ready to vote. Mr. Clerk, please open the board for the vote. And members, please proceed to vote for a positive or negative recommendation. Has every member voted? Any member wish to change their votes? All right, seeing none. Mr. Clerk, please report the vote.
Mr. Chairman, the vote is 11 ayes and 1 no.
Thank you for that. Next up for you, sir, Finance, Ways and Means for House Bill 683. Item number 2 on our agenda today, House Bill 110. Looks like that's going to be presented by Leader Cochran. Leader Cochran, we have a motion. Do we have a second? You have a second. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 110, this legislation adds language stating that the Commissioner of Financial Institution, the Department of Financial Institutions, gives them specific authority to require Tennessee state chartered banks to maintain deposit insurance, and adds into law standards the Commissioner must use when making determinations about the deposit requirements. So the Commissioner would be able to determine the type, amounts, and characteristics of deposit insurance required to be maintained by each Tennessee bank. This determination would be made based upon consideration of several factors, including safety and soundness, the ability of the bank to promote economic progress, public confidence in the banking system, as well as the views of the banking industry in Tennessee. I will yield to any question that the department is here to answer any detailed questions if you have them.
Thank you for that explanation. Members, do we have any questions? Seeing none. Members, we are ready to vote for a positive or negative recommendation. Mr. Clerk, please open the board. Has every member voted? Anybody wish to change their vote? All right, seeing none. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll. Call the vote.
Mr. Chairman, the vote is 13 ayes.
And thank you for that. It looks like we've got that passed through House Bill 110 with positive recommendation, and you're on to calendar and rules. Thanks, sir. Let's see, we're going to go out of order here just for a second. We're going to jump down the calendar to item, give me just a moment.
It's going to be item 7, I believe.
It'd be item number 7. They were before us last week, and unfortunately, we ran out of time. Let's see. And at this time, we'll pass the gavel over to Vice Chairman Reedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, item number 7, House Bill 242 by Chairman Lafferty. Chairman Lafferty, do we get a motion?
Motion.
We have a motion and a second. Chairman Lafferty, you're on the bill, sir.
All right, thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. Yes, as you mentioned, this bill is simply to extend the sunset for this institution. It will be extended to 2029. If there's any questions, we do have the commissioner and the department on site to take any questions if we have a few. And I would, Mr. Chairman, if I could request, I would like to hear we've got some new faces in here, and it never hurts me personally to get more information. I'd like for them, if they don't mind, to come up and give us a brief summary of the day in, day out kind of operations.
With that, member, we're going to have the Department of Financial Institutions come before us. We are out of order. Yeah, we're always out of order. Yes, out of session. Boy, Commissioner Gonzalez, what a way to start that meeting, huh? Please introduce yourself for the record to the committee, sir.
Greg Gonzalez, Commissioner, Department of Financial Institutions. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I just wanted to say that we're one of the smallest agencies in state government, but we have a huge responsibility to ensure the safety and soundness of our Tennessee banking system and regulate hundreds of non-bank institutions as well. The way we go about doing that is a philosophy of ensuring safety and soundness, but being mindful of economic development. That regulatory balance is critical. A limited approach to government regulation, doing enough to make sure that we have that safe and sound banking system. But the least amount of government intervention to get the job done is always going to be best. We have a experienced staff, a number of new folks joining us. So if there's anything that I can do to answer any questions, be happy to do so.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Representative Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And sir, Commissioner, does your department oversee payday lenders, short-term interest
Yes.
lenders?
Yes.
And what type of regulations and oversight do you have of them? And can you brief us on any updates to protect consumers?
Sure. Those companies, as well as a number of other short-term lenders, money transmitters, we have the basic statutory requirements of there are certain requirements that they must go through, net worth, other things that they must do. But one of the things that we've added to that is an understanding of the risk of these various industries. We do that on a company by company basis. So we'll look at a lot of different factors to determine if companies are low, moderate, or high risk. And if they're high risk, then we're going to make sure that we're in on those companies at least on an annual basis to ensure that we can put more focus on those companies that produce or have more risk to the consumer. And if companies can reduce their risk to the consumer, then we can push those exams out just at least a few months, so we can put most of our risk where consumers need it. Most of our exams where consumers need it.
Representative Clemens, follow it.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so when you say reduce risk to the consumers, can you elaborate on what you mean by that and protect consumers?
Sure, there's a number of different things. Certainly look at interest rates, making sure that those rates that are charged are appropriate, that the fees that are charged are appropriate under the law. But we're also looking to determine, is there risk in operations? One of the things that we learned out of the mortgage situation of nearly 15 years ago was that there were companies that had such turnover, it was really hard for them to ensure they had the appropriate training to be able to comply with governing law. So that's an example of one of the factors that we look at. What kind of turnover does a company have? What kind of experience in management do they have? Do they have that appropriate training? So just some examples of some of the risk factors that we look at to gauge what is the risk profile to the consumer.
Follow-up, Representative Clemens. Next, we'll go to Representative McKenzie, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, kind of pulling the string on that consumer risk piece of it. So, is this a true statement to say in terms of as you evaluate the risk, if payday lender A is having a unusually high non-payment rate, do you allow them flexibility to go up on their fees and their interest rates to keep them whole or keep them solvent? Or do you stop them from lending to at a certain point or a certain level if their financial solvency is not where it should be?
There's a cap on rate and fees. They've got to stay within that. So these institutions have got to make a judgment within the bounds of the law. If I could go back to, just our approach and our philosophy in regulating the non-bank world, we look to create the greatest access to credit, but within the bounds of the law and within prudent operations. And that prudent operations means that we're looking at various risk factors of these companies to ensure that the risk to the consumer is not significant. So it could be a number of different factors, and we'll look and see how the industry as a whole is operating. And then if you have outliers, whatever that factor might be, then that's going to cause us to be put more attention if there's outliers on various factors.
Representative McKenzie. Any further questions, comments for the commissioner? Chairman Lafferty, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just curious, could you outline some of the differences between how we regulate our state banks versus what the feds do to the federally chartered banks? Could you just little history on that for me, please?
Well, there's going to be a similar approach, but one thing that I would say would be a distinction is our approach to regulation, the philosophy of regulation. Once again, it's a balanced approach, ensuring safety and soundness, but being mindful of economic development, least amount of government intervention to get the job done. So I think the federal approach needs to be more balanced to enable the banking industry to fully be able to serve the people of this state. There just needs to be a more balanced approach. So that is what we're after all the time. Just because a little bit of government regulation is good doesn't mean that a whole lot more of it is even better. If you go back and look at the failures from a couple of years ago, I think the federal response was to add on more and more and more regulation. But there is a law of diminishing returns. You can add so much regulation that you actually, in my opinion, impact the health of the banking system by adding more, not improving the health of the banking system. So there's always a balance.
Chairman Lafferty.
Thank you for that. I appreciate the less government approach very much so. The only other question that I wanted to ask, it's been brought to my attention that when somebody makes deposits or withdrawals of an amount around $10,000 or so, for some reason that gets reported to the federal government. Does that get reported to the FBI? Does that get reported to FDIC? And what's the purpose of that?
Right. Those are Treasury regulations, and there may be access by various agencies to that information. And so it's a Bank Secrecy Act, anti-money laundering provision. And we'll have to see going forward where that threshold is. It could be increased. There's certainly been some comments and some suggestions that it should be increased, but that's from U.S. Treasury.
Any
Last one.
Chairman Lafferty.
And is that are state banks subject to that as well as? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, sir. Any further questions for Commissioner Gonzalez? Seeing none, Thank you, sir, for being with us today. We'll go back into session. Any further questions for Chairman Lafferty on, and I'll just read, as introduced, extends the Department of Financial Institutions to June 30th of 2029. We do have a motion for a positive recommendation. At this time, are we ready to vote? Clerk, please open the vote. Somebody annoying me. Clerk, please take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, the vote is 12 ayes and 0 noes.
Thank you, sir. It moves out with a positive recommendation. Next on our calendar is item number 8, House Bill 266 by Chairman Lafferty. We've got a motion and a second. Chairman Lafferty. I digress. What we're going to do is go back. Chairman Lafferty, the gavel's yours, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Appreciate you helping me out there. We're going to jump to item number 3. That's House Bill 968 by Representative Hawk. We have motion to second. Chairman Hawk, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Chairman and members. And we heard from the opponents of this legislation for 45 minutes last week. So I thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about why we need to do this particular piece of legislation. House Bill 968 essentially sets up a directory for vape products. It allows sales of what is already and only legal in the country. It requires age verification, and it's a public health issue. I've mentioned last week, I've got a 13-year-old daughter who is seeing vape products in her middle school right now. The high schools are full of these products. Most of these products are coming from China. As was attested to last week, 90% of these products are coming from China. House Bill 968 attempts to stop the influx of illegal Chinese vape products that are addicting our kids and wreaking havoc on our schools. Our judges and juvenile courts are asking for us to do something, and this is a mechanism to do that. Currently, we have no rules or regulations in regard to vape products. This, again, sets up a directory and allows us to take care of our kids. I'll stand for any questions you may have, Chairman and members.
Thank you for that explanation. Members, do we have any questions? Representative Clemens, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, sponsor. I had mentioned to you that I had a few questions last week, and I had some questions for the people who opposed this bill as well that I asked last week. So my big concern is obviously keeping this out of children's hands who shouldn't have this. I'm not sure anybody should, but especially our children. So can you just, for the record, tell me exactly how this keeps vaping away from our children and out of our schools?
Well, unfortunately, nothing's going to keep it 100% away from our kids. And I'll relate this somewhat to apples and oranges, but when we're dealing with the opioid epidemic, when we ultimately tried to reduce the inventory of opioids across the market in the state of Tennessee, what we're doing is, number one, ensuring that we only have approved vape products out there. Number one, there's so many illegal products out there right now. We're reducing the presence of those illegal products where stores cannot sell an illegal product. And unfortunately, that's what's getting into the hands of our young people quite often, are these illegal closed Chinese illicit drug program, vape products. So we're reducing the inventory, number one. The universal carding aspect of it is helpful. I hesitate to say that a 20-year-old's not going to pay somebody X number of dollars to say, hey, go buy this. You're 21, you go buy this for me. But the universal carding aspect is going to bring greater attention to it. And hopefully it's going to allow parents to pay closer attention to what their kids are doing. But the big thing is just reducing the inventory of those illegal products in the state of Tennessee.
Any follow-up?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. There was something that you had referenced about these products needing to be registered, or if they are pending approval by the government.
There's an FDA, and I hesitate to say list of approved products, but either products that are on a pathway to being allowed. It's not necessarily approved, but products that have gone through the FDA to be allowed to be sold in the marketplace. Those would be the only items that could be sold in the state of Tennessee, is those items that either the FDA have approved or are on a pathway of being discussed by the FDA toward approval.
Follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so with that, will retailers know which products are pending so that they know which ones not to sell versus which ones are? Is there a list on the government's website so retailers have access to that? Or, I don't want to put them in a position that is impractical.
The vision that I've seen from other states is that, yes, that is published by XYZ state. These are the 400 plus products that are on a pathway toward with the FDA. And yes, other states have published that list. I'm sure Tennessee would and will do the same thing, and I'll work toward that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Representative Renaud.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sponsor, do I understand correctly that there is a federal precedence or law already that says that products can only be sold if they are already approved by the FDA or in that process?
You're recognized.
You're correct.
So any products that are being sold right now, would that be considered black market?
You're recognized.
You're correct.
Thank you.
And next up on the list, we've got Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sponsor, thank you for the bill. A couple presuppositions I have when I heard this this conversation. First, none of us, all of us small government people, like less regulation. But certainly there seems to be an attack upon America's children in some cases by foreign entities that have everything to gain from developing a culture of addiction and dependency. Whether that's a psychological or a physiological addiction, I don't know, but it seems that both are the case. Do you think your bill helps address that?
100%. I'm sorry.
You're recognized.
100%. Yes, sir, I do.
All right.
You're recognized.
I have heard from law enforcement, anti-drug coalitions in my counties, police officers I know across the state that just have a tremendous problem with the vaping products. So I applaud your efforts. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Next up on the list, we've got Representative Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, sponsor. Two questions. Can you, in the convenience stores, and I don't vape, I don't smoke, never have, in the convenience stores, can they buy the little vapes that look like the plug-in for the computer? What's it called? The USB drive. Do you know if they sell those in convenience stores?
You're recognized.
Sir, I'm just like you. I don't smoke. I don't vape. I don't know what they can make one look like. I would venture to say you can make one look like anything you wanted to make it look like if you've got the hardware inside and you could twist it and turn it. And to your point, that's another one of the concerns that I've got, that many of these products are pretty colors and they've got cartoons on them like they used to sell cigarettes to people back in the day. There was cartoons in the Camels and all this that you saw that was playing specifically to young people. I will tell you something. At my 13-year-old's volleyball tournament over the weekend, there was conversation about people coming up with a particular product. These girls were wearing their hoodies, and that they could conceal a vape inside a little hoodie. Someone is actually making a hoodie that will conceal a vape inside that they can just reach over, take a puff, reach over, take a puff whenever they're doing that. Can do it in school, can do it in whatever environment they want. But I'll leave it at that.
Representative Glenn, follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is amazing, to be honest with you. And this may be a stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you know if we have a FDA office here in the state or FDA agent or anything like that here in the state that could talk to us a little bit more about what the FDA does not do in terms of this product.
You're recognized.
Representative Glenn, I would be reaching, but just through years of experience, knowing some of our different state departments that work on issues like that. We've got Department of Agriculture, Department of Commerce, Department of Health. There may be someone within those departments. And then on the regulatory part of it, of course, you've got our law enforcement agencies who have vast interest in vast information on these products as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Next up, we've got Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Chairman. And Representative Renaud actually put a new question on my mind. Which one you want first? Sponsor mine or the one she prompted?
You're recognized.
Chairman, I'm looking for your name on the board over there, Representative Hardaway. Are you on this committee?
1, 2, 3, 4.
There you are. There you are.
Number 6.
Okay.
But now since you questioned that, I'm going to have to, I've got a third question for you now.
You give me whatever you want to, sir.
All right. On that, and she asked about the black market status of these, whoever's selling at retail, wholesale. You said that they are currently operating illegally?
There's a directory of products. What is legal to sell on a federal level? What's legal to sell is those products that are on an FDA directory that have been working toward a pathway. And again, approval is not the right word in my mind. It escapes my mind exactly what word we're talking about, but on a pathway where they're not going to do, they're not going to have harmful chemicals in them other than what is addictive in these products already. They're not going to have arsenic in them. They're not going to have, choose your poison. They're not going to have something like that. They're more nicotine based is what they're going to have in them. But yes, the federal government has guidelines on this.
Representative Hardaway.
Thank you. So the bottom line is they could currently be subject to civil and or criminal penalties.
You're recognized.
I'm not sure what the federal enforcement is, but it's up to the states now to ensure that we get this enforced.
Representative Hardaway.
All right, I'd like to visit with you later on that. On the revenues, a whole lot of money being generated. Is any of that going to substance abuse addiction programs? I didn't see that detailed out.
I think as a legislature, we could most likely direct that wherever we find value in directing those funds. A substantial portion of that will be for enforcement. But I think working through our Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse would be another good way to put those dollars to good use. So yes, Representative Hardaway, I think we could make some decisions where we can best invest those dollars.
Well, I'd love to work with you on that. And that was such a good answer. I'm going to hold this third question. Thank you, Chairman.
I'll try to read the roster better next time.
Any further questions from the committee? Chairman Hawk, any closing remarks?
Here to help the ball team.
Oh, we do have someone here for public comment. Terry Levisey, if I pronounce that probably not correctly. If you're here, please come on down. Members, we're going to go out of session. Hi, I'm going to call you Terry for now until you get a chance to put your name on the record officially. But if you would, please introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your comments. And if you could, keep them under 3 minutes, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Terry Livesey. I am the Communications Director for Tennessee Smoke Free Association, and I also own 2 vape shops, Knoxville Vapor, one in Knoxville and one in Sevierville. I was not intending to speak at all today, so I came unprepared, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right. Members, do we have any questions for our guest here? Chairman Reedy, you're recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being with us today, but go ahead and share with us your stance on, do you oppose or in support of this piece of legislation?
You're
Well,
recognized.
I absolutely oppose this legislation. This legislation was written by Big Tobacco for their benefit. This will remove all of the products in our store. He's mentioned that there's a list of 400 different products that the FDA has. We've seen that list, and it's actually only about 40. So most of the products that are on that list are not things that any of us sell in our stores.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
Representative Parkinson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so can you explain to me, I'm just trying to get better, and I apologize for walking in late, but trying to get better understanding of how this bill affects you and your business.
You're recognized.
This bill would remove all of the products from my shelves. It would close my stores. It would close over 700 stores in the state of Tennessee. It would leave thousands upon thousands of people who use our products to no longer smoke cigarettes with no option but either smoking, turning to a real black market that could be very, very dangerous. And that's a negative public health effect for sure.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, can I continue?
Please, one more.
Okay. And so so do the products that you have in your store, they're not regulated by the FDA, and what products will you lose that will cause you to go out of business?
So we sell something very different than the Chinese disposables that are being presented as the problem, which those are the ones that the kids are using. Those are from China. We don't necessarily know what's in them. However, I will tell you that the same thing is in them that is what's in the ones that have been authorized by the FDA that are sold by Big Tobacco. The primary thing that we sell and that helps people no longer smoke cigarettes is open systems. So this is a bottle of e-liquid that has 4 primary ingredients in it. All of those ingredients have been authorized by the FDA. They're all of the e-liquids that we sell are made in the United States in a certified lab that is inspected by the FDA on a yearly basis. So we know what's in those products, and those products have been used for consumers for 15 years with no problems at all. And so if we remove those products from our stores, then consumers will go use real black market products. The reason these products are allowed to be sold is FDA discretion. So these products have all been submitted to the FDA through the PMTA process, and they've taken their time reviewing them. Some of them have been issued a marketing denial order. Some of them are in litigation. Some of them are still being reviewed. But the FDA does inspect all of those labs, and they have allowed those products to remain on the market. It's not the same product as the Chinese vapes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. Representative Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, ma'am, for being here. I'm right here.
Where? Oh.
Right. He's jealous. Couple of questions. In your vape stores, do you sell the vapes that look like USB ports? So you do not sell those?
You're recognized.
Do you sell the vapes that look like ink pens?
Absolutely not.
You're recognized.
What about the ones that look like a highlighter?
No, we never have. We do sell some of the disposable vapes that do come out of China, but they're responsibly marketed to adult consumers. We generally don't see those products. We've seen them online. We don't see them at our distros. We don't see them in our stores. You might see them in some of the shadier corner convenience store type places. I haven't, but I really don't go into those stores very often. They're mostly things that you would see online, things that kids could get through, say a TikTok shop or something like that, which there was supposed to be legislation to have stopped that back in 2020. So I don't know how they're still getting those there, but kids aren't coming into our vape shops, the over 700 vape shops in the state of Tennessee, and buying these products. They're getting them online. They're getting them from older brothers and sisters. And if you go and you look at FDA data from their enforcement, you'll find that 98% of the penalties have been to convenience stores and gas stations, not vape shops.
Representative Glenn, could you wrap it up here, please?
Yes, the last question.
Thank you.
And just to make sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and just to make sure, the products you sell, just want to be clear, are from China, and FDA has not approved those products.
So a small percentage of the products that we have in our store are from China. The majority of what we sell, the open system e-liquids, which is what covers the majority of our shelf space in our store, is from the United States. Now, the handful of the Chinese disposable vapes that we bring in do have a place. They have helped a lot of people stop smoking cigarettes. Could those consumers switch to something else? Certainly. The issue with the Chinese disposables is we have them, people come in and they want to try them, and we'll sell them to them, and they're very high nicotine. And that's also what you'll find on the authorized registry from FDA is very high nicotine products, like 50 milligrams, which is way more than anybody really truly needs. What we sell in our stores is an opportunity for these people to step down their nicotine level and eventually stop vaping too. We have literally the worst business model in the history of business models because we want people to stop using our product, right? So we help them step down. We help them go to a lower nicotine level. And we celebrate with them when they quit vaping altogether. And they'll pop in and say, hey, I'm still smoke-free and vape-free. And we're happy for them for that. The stuff that's on the registry is all high nicotine with no opportunity to step down. Those are all big tobacco products because this bill is drafted by big tobacco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Clemens, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Here's my problem. Just this week, a storefront in what looks like Class A commercial space, vape shop, opened less than 1 block from my child's high school, less than 1,000 feet from their sports field, less than 1,000 feet from their gymnasium. And the colorway on the logo out front resembles the Nintendo logo. Now, Class A commercial space is not cheap in this town. These people are well-funded, or they're making a lot of money. And children going to this school every day are driving by this. Now, there is only one reason the colorway on that sign is the way it is, and it's located there strategically. That's my problem. And I realize there's bad actors in every profession. But what do you suggest? Because the only thing I heard last week was we should only have 21 and up stores. Well, that takes them out of convenience stores and creates an unlevel playing field for retailers. So what's your suggestion to keep them out of hands of kids and to keep them away from the schools?
You're recognized.
Look, I have a big problem with that too. And in my town, there's a similar scenario where they've got the big vape signs right outside in their parking lot, and it's right next to a middle school and a high school. And I hate it. And there are bad actors out there. Banning the product, in my opinion, is not the right way to solve it because you're removing adult consumers' ability to not smoke cigarettes anymore, while cigarettes are still allowed to be on the market. The solution, in my opinion, is we need some enforcement, maybe some licensure that says you can't open these shops within, so many feet or, a certain distance from a school or a library or whatever, like similar to what we do. Isn't there a similar situation for alcohol, I believe, and now for hemp? Like they have to be a certain distance from schools. That should be in place, and that should be maybe through a licensure regulation. But we would love to sit down and brainstorm some options and some solutions because there's one out there. This bill isn't it, but there's definitely some solutions out there, and we want to help find it. We don't want youth vaping at all. We want reasonable regulation.
Representative Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Quick question for you. You mentioned the numerous different products that were out there that were approved by our federal government already. Are those with some of the testimony? I may be conflating some things here. Some of the testimony that we heard last week, they were talking about being able to, I'm going to use the term distill. I'm not sure that's the right term, but to distill kind of their own brand of product. Are you not those chemicals that you were talking about that had the high nicotine levels? Can those not be distilled down into something gentler, kinder to help somebody get off the nicotine?
It could be manufactured with less nicotine. Is that what you mean?
I guess so.
So you're saying the things that are on the authorized list already, can they be made into a less nicotine option? They could be. Absolutely, they could be. It would have to go through a new PMTA process with the FDA, and FDA would have to authorize that because it would be a new SKU, a new product, and I would hope that they would. I mean, we want to see people stop vaping, but in my opinion, it's contrary to Big Tobacco's mission of keeping this whole new generation hooked on nicotine. Cigarette sales are down dramatically. MSA funds are down dramatically to the states because of it. They're not happy. They've been trying to get rid of us for 12 years, and now they're pushing harder now than ever across all of the states. So in my opinion, tobacco has no desire to do a lower nicotine option that will be registered and authorized by the FDA because they don't want the product to go away. They want to keep people addicted.
Thank you for that. Members, do we have any other questions? Seeing none. Members, we're ready. Oh, I'm sorry. Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Chairman. And I was trying to keep up. You said you have a business model that is designed to put you out of business, or it might put you out of business. So does that mean you don't sell any addictive products?
It does not mean. What it does mean at my shop is when we opened our business, we made a decision to never sell a nicotine product to somebody who didn't have a nicotine addiction already. So smoking, we know, kills 480,000 people a year in the United States. And we stopped smoking by vaping and thought it was a miracle. And so when we decided to open a vape shop, we opened it with a lot of integrity and a lot of love for our consumers and our customers that come in. So one of the first questions we ask, even 12 years later, is, how much are you smoking now? And if the answer is, I'm not smoking at all, we explain to them why they should not be vaping either. And we won't sell them a product. And if we do sell them a product, we sell them the appropriate nicotine level based on the discussions that we have, which is almost never 50 milligrams. And then over time, we help them step down that nicotine level to zero. We sell quite a bit of zero nicotine e-liquid to those people who have stepped down and are on path to quit using the product altogether. So I say it's a bad business model because there's people we won't sell product to. And then there's also the goal to get them to stop using our product over time as well.
Representative Hardaway.
All right, so you're describing that to some extent a medical function, but I'm not going to ask you any more questions about that because I don't want to get you in trouble. But I am going to ask you to be clear on your initial statement that this legislation will negatively impact you to the point of folks possibly going out of business. How will that happen? What's the problem here?
You recognized.
The problem is that we would be restricted to selling the 34 products that are currently authorized by the FDA, which are big tobacco products that no vape shop would be able to sell. Those are the products that you would find at a gas station. So that would be one group of products we could sell. The other group of products we could sell are the so-called list of 400 products. We've looked at that list, and a lot of it is pouches and things like that that are not even vaping related. There's, I think it was 40 or 60 different e-liquid options that are on that list. All we sell are vapor products. That's it. We don't sell anything else, and we can't maintain a business with 40 products. It would be impossible.
All right. Thank you, Chairman. I'm still not clear on some things, but right now I'm still supporting the bill. Thank you for your testimony.
Certainly.
All right. Thank you for that. Members, any other questions for our guest? Seeing none, we're going to go back in session. Chairman Hawk, please.
Thank you. And just allow me to bring some clarity to it. What you just heard is that the open systems that they have, the ingredients have FDA approval, they can still sell them. We're not banning any products other than those that are illegal. I know it's kind of difficult for some folks to wrap their minds around that, but we're not banning any product. We're allowing products in the stores that have been given FDA consideration. That's what we're doing with this legislation. Thank you, Chairman and members.
And if I might, it also seems a logical conclusion that if products right now that are being experimented with, being tested and or tied up in litigation are probably still available to the market, those wouldn't be going away either. You recognize?
If they're on a pathway, just as we said. And again, the list, and I read off some names of the products. And there was an ironic statement last week, and it was contradicted this week. We heard last week that 90% of the products are from China. Now we hear very few are from China. You can't have it both ways. There's a list of what the FDA has: order review, under review by FDA, acknowledge appeal request by the FDA, stay order appeal. So there's certain statuses of all these 400 plus products that we've got out there. And I read some kind of alarming names of some of these products that go back to the concern that this committee has keeping these products out of the kids' hands, which is ultimately what I'm trying to do, Chairman and members.
All right, thank you for that. Members, I think we've exhausted this one. We have a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please open the board for the vote. Members, you know where to go from there. Every member voted? Anybody wishing to change a vote? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, the vote is 12 ayes and 1 no.
Thank you for that. With that, Chairman Hawk, House Bill 968 goes out to Finance, Ways and Means. Thanks, sir. Next item on our calendar, members, we have House Bill 329 by Representative Martin. You are recognized, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. House Bill 329 gives Tennessee banks access to cost-effective health insurance options through a multiple employer welfare agreement. Current state law allows rules to be promulgated for insurance pooling. This simply adds the words, including through a multiple employer welfare arrangement. And with that, I stand ready for questions, Chairman.
Thank you for that explanation. Members, this sounds like something we did a few years ago for people that were in like businesses together. Do we have any questions? Representative McKenzie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I'm reading the bill, it looks like this is a bill for one company. Who is that company and why are we limiting it to one company?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't believe it is. It's supposed to be geared more toward community banks. So it puts a cap on the number of people that can be part of it. But the main thing is trying to help pool the premiums for those companies. So they have to be like businesses. So they all have to be community banks of some form, and then allows them to pool their money together for that.
Representative McKenzie, you're recognized.
Yeah. As I'm reading it, it says, I guess this is in the fiscal note. It says that in information provided to them, one new application for MEWA is expected to be filed this year. So I guess I'm trying to understand why we have such a tailored bill at this point when we don't seem to have a clamoring for folks that want this.
You're recognized.
Thank you, sir. That might be the one that could potentially open up for this time, but I've had banks in my own community that were open to this because of their option and is limited in the community bank world. So when I presented this to them, they were open to the concept of joining. Right now it's capped, and that's the game plan to get it started.
Any follow-up?
Yeah, just last one. So it and that gets to what you just said. So when you say it's capped, would two companies be able to, like, if one in your community says, hey, I like this, would they be able to apply in this cycle, or would that have to take additional legislation?
You're recognized.
I do not have that answer for you.
Well, thank you for that. Members, any other questions? Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sponsor, do you think this bill helps a smaller business model, the small community banks compete for resources with some of the larger banks that have more ability to reach out to these type programs?
You're recognized.
I would think so. And I personally had a MIWA with our chiropractic group at one time, and it helped us as a small business to tap into that. So that's why I personally saw this as something similar to line up with for those smaller groups. And that's why when I asked my community banks, that's what they thought as well. They're competing with a bigger pool, and their expenses are usually salary and then health insurance. So any way we continue to push the premium down helps our small businesses and helps all business in Tennessee, in my opinion. So,
Any follow up?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that. Members, any other questions? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. Mr. Clerk, please put the board up. Members, please take your vote. Has every member voted? Anyone wishing to change a vote? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, please report the vote.
Mr. Chairman, the vote is 14 ayes.
And thank you for that. Representative Martin, House Bill 329 passes out to Finance, Ways and Means. Next up, we have item number 5 by Representative Darby. Do we have motion? We have motion. Representative Darby, you have a second. You're recognized on your bill, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill simply allows for schools to keep an emergency stock of inhalers for quick relief, life-saving medication for children who are experiencing an asthma attack.
Members, seems pretty straightforward. Do we have any questions? Seeing none, we are ready to vote. Mr. Clerk, would you open the board for us, please? And place your votes. Has every member voted? Anybody wishing to change a vote? Seeing none. All right, Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, the vote is 13 ayes.
Thank you for that. Representative Darby, your next stop for House Bill 760 is Finance, Ways and Means. Thank you. Next up, item number 6, House Bill 0016 by Clemens. You have a motion to second. Mr. Chairman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. This bill would create the Student Pedestrian Protection Grant Fund, and grant program would be housed within TDOT for the purposes of supplementing local government's efforts to design, construct, repair, and replace sidewalk infrastructure near and around our public schools.
Thank you for that explanation. Members, do we have any questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, looks like we're ready to vote. Mr. Clerk, would you open the board for us, please? Members, please make your vote known. Anybody wish to change the vote? Seeing none. All right, Representative Clemens, House Bill 16 passes out to Finance, Ways and Means. I'm going to skip forward now. I'm sorry, what was the question? Oh, we got help coming your way.
Need to announce it.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Clerk. Please announce the vote.
Mr. Chairman, the vote is 14 ayes and 0 noes.
We'll try that again. House, thank you for that. All right, House Bill 16, we'll go to calendar and rules. Last up, I'm going to turn the gavel over to Chairman Reedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee, we are back. I had failed on House Bill 242 to say that it was headed to calendar and rules, 242. Chairman Lafferty, you are recognized on House Bill 266, sir. We got a motion and a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is one of our sunset bills, this time to advance Tennessee Bureau of Investigations for until 2029. And we do have someone here to give us a little overview if they would.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, we will go out of session to hear from Director Roush. And please introduce yourselves to the committee and continue, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is that, okay, thank you. I'm David Roush. I have the honor of serving as the director of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. And with me today is Patrick Power, our director of policy.
Thank you. Chairman Lafferty?
Thank you guys for being here today. I think everybody pretty well understands what the TBI does, and thank you for your efforts out there, going out and trying to keep us safe and keep an eye on us. I appreciate that. I do have a question, though. Some constituents back home have brought something to my attention about I don't know, there's no proper way to say this. The dipping into our sewer systems to detect drugs. Could you please let me know how that works, what the goals are? Are there any instances where you've seen this work? How you came about this idea, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, so the wastewater testing project is not new. Actually has been done throughout communities and actually has been tested previously without a lot of funding previously in Knoxville in a general sense rather than a specific. And then it is being utilized throughout the country in a number of communities. There's a lot actually of information available online about this specific type of testing and the purpose of it. Purpose for us is to, this is a test project, for us to see the viability of it for prevention is the primary focus. The idea is what can be done is to determine, they've gotten more sophisticated with the capabilities of this testing. What it will do is give us advance notice of drugs that are in systems that are flowing. And so what happens is we're able to pinpoint locations, not a specific address, but general areas where drug use is happening, so that as we work, what we'll be doing is working with our partners at Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, Department of Health, Education, to assure that we are properly putting resources of education and prevention and treatment in the areas where it is most needed. That's the purpose of this. As you've read, I'm sure there is a piece of it that allows us to use it for enforcement, small piece. But that is even really kind of a different approach. The idea would be is we have a complaint, a potential drug house in a community. What this would allow us to do is to test the water in the community to determine if there is a high level of substance, illegal substance in that water. It won't give me a specific house, but it'll give me a block. And so what happens then is we can then put surveillance in the area to see what is going on, to act further on that information. So it's really for that, that's a very minute piece of it. It is a capability of it, but our focus really is on the prevention realm of all of this.
Chairman Lafferty?
Thank you for that. It's why not rely on your local sheriff's departments, the folks that are boots on the ground that do this every day. I'm sure that they know where the troubles are coming from.
Yeah. So again, it is for now. You're talking more specific about the enforcement side.
Chairman,
I'm talking specifically. Your local police departments know where trouble is. I don't think that any of them would be surprised by anything that these tests showed them. So in turn, they're your eyes and ears out there anyway, without starting a new program. This program is a part of the larger war on drugs that we've been fighting, at least since I was in elementary school. That's the first time that I heard anything about it. The war on drugs, that is. But is that?
Yeah. So, Mr. Chairman, a couple of things. One is, and I appreciate it. Yes, the terminology that's been used on our efforts to reduce drug issues in our communities has been titled a war. I would argue against that terminology. I see it more as our ongoing efforts to keep communities safe, because in wars there's typically an end. Most wars, there's typically an end game. In this, the end game is reducing use and damage by drugs. However, it's not a game that will ever end, in my honest opinion. It is one that we got to continue to push against to keep our residents safe. And if we were to stop that effort, what would happen is, I think, devastating, frankly, to our communities. And so I would push back on that terminology. But I would tell you that in terms of this is more of identifying. So what happens right now is the information will come to us way after the fact. Local law enforcement, us, federal law enforcement, it comes to us way after the fact in terms of how to address, right? So for an example, the health department just released the 2023 overdose numbers this year, right? Nothing against them, but that's how long the delay is in getting information that can be actionable. Right. And so what this does is gives us the ability to act faster, swifter, to address these issues before we have the overdose deaths and the number of overdoses that we're seeing. And so this gives us the information prior to the problem getting worse. And so that's the advantage I see, frankly, of having a program like this to test. Again, this is a pilot project. And the attempt will be to see how effective it is at providing the information necessary to provide those services.
Chairman Lafferty?
So how would you decide where to start? I mean, regardless of the terminology, war on drugs or prevention, still this has been going on at least 50 years that I'm aware of. How do you decide where to start the expedition, I guess?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I would tell you that in terms of where to start is where the problems are. And so the reason that we picked the East Tennessee, we picked Knoxville as the pilot location is because of the level of the challenge and the issue in that area. It is, I have personal knowledge of that issue over there, and the numbers speak for themselves in terms of data that we see on overdoses as well as enforcement by our local and state and federal law enforcement in that area on the ongoing drug issues. And so that's kind of where why we selected that as the pilot. I'm not sure if that's the answer to the question, but that's why we selected that location. I think Patrick has some further.
And Chairman, to expound on both the last question and on this one, this will allow detection of new emerging drugs that we otherwise were having to wait until someone overdosed and died, and then get the autopsy. For instance, if you remember a couple of years ago, we had a bill on xylazine. Fentanyl was being cut with xylazine. It doesn't respond to Narcan. So situations where people were dying weren't being able to be saved from Narcan and didn't know really what the cause was until the autopsies were coming back. At least in theory, this kind of program would allow us to detect that and get ahead of it a lot sooner instead of waiting for those deaths and waiting for the back end and then responding much well after the fact. And I bring that up because obviously the xylazine situation, that started to emerge first in East Tennessee as well. That's where we started seeing that pop up, and it kind of fits everything.
Chairman Lafferty?
I'll defer. It looks like Director Roush had another comment.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that is we're already seeing, again, after the fact, a new drug emerge called nitazines, right? And so, again, we're after the fact on these things. We're having to catch up and try to address these things, where if we had that information early on, both the health department and substance abuse folks can get in there and get the information to people to let them know the high dangerous level of these new substances.
Chairman?
Thank you. I appreciate the intent. I get it. Public safety, it's what you do, and God bless you for it. I wouldn't have the patience, the mentality for it. I know this. I'm just not convinced that this is the best expenditure. I know this is not the forum for all of that, but it seems like a lot of effort going in where there's if I remember from the last report, you guys were still trying to make up on some reporting, some getting information back to people that have requested it on rape kits, things like that. I'm not sure where you stand on that, but I don't know. How long is this pilot? That'll be my last question.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a 1 year. So also for the monies, just so you understand, it's not general fund money. This is money coming out of the opioid abatement funds. And so this is again, the idea is those funds are used for prevention. And that's really the focus of this. It's a one-year pilot project. And then in terms of since you mentioned it, Chairman, in terms of our turnaround and our efforts in those spaces when it comes to our forensic services, we have seen great impact with the additional scientists that this body has provided us, as well as the addition to our finances to pay our scientists better and our personnel in the Bureau. And so as a result of that, we're retaining folks and we're having great impacts. So as the latest numbers, as a matter of fact, I can share where we are. Just a report was just released on our latest numbers on our drug testing. And so on our DNA testing, just for the record. So our kit onlys, where the sex offense kit is submitted, here in Nashville, turnaround is 5.4 weeks. In Knoxville, 11.9 weeks, and in Jackson, 12.8 weeks. So our goal was to be at 12 weeks. 8 to 12 weeks. And so we are right on the precipice of hitting that go in Jackson. And so the same for our, right. So the additional kits, we're still a little behind, but we're picking those up. So what happens is not just a kit is submitted, sometimes bed sheets or clothing is submitted. And so that has to be tested as well. So the kit alone, we're that close to hitting that 8 to 12 weeks. With additional items, we're looking at Nashville 24.6, Knoxville 12.3, Jackson 14.2. So even those are coming way down. A big number that I think is important for you all to understand in terms of the resources you provided. Our total inventory of evidence to be worked in February of 2024 was 15,940 items. Today, it stands at 6,975. So what we're seeing is we're working more evidence than's coming in the door, and it's whittling away at that level of evidence that we have that still needs to be processed. And so what I see is success is happening. We still have a number of scientists that are in training. And as soon as they complete that training within the next year, we'll see this drop even further. And so I think it's important. I think Patrick has some additional.
I was just going to say, Chairman, as far as the sexual assault kit numbers, we peaked at over 45 weeks back when this kind of issue hit. Thankfully, we'd asked for positions and solutions before then, but peaked at 45 plus weeks statewide average. The now statewide average on all cases combined, both kit alone and kit with other items, is at a statewide average of 12.4. So we said we would be between 8 and 12 with 2 years. We're not even quite to 2 years, and we're right at the door. So,
yeah, and I'd have one more point to make.
Yes, sir.
In reference to your overall question about funding, I would tell you, yes, we still have more need, and in various areas within the Bureau. However, again, this was monies that were identified under the opioid abatement that would be potential to help us with a project that we believe is going to help overall in that drug side of the house, where we're in that effort.
Yeah, thank you, Director. Members, this committee has a hard stop at 12. Now, with this is an important conversation, but Representative Glenn, I've got you next. You're going to pass. Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one quick question. Thank you all for coming today. Using the testing in the sewage as leading indices of things coming, would you consider a warrant necessary if the emerging DNA technologies were to allow an assimilation between something in the sewage and a specific person?
Director.
Thank you, Mr. Representative. Yes, sir. Legal process would always prevail in those types of situations. Absolutely.
Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Chairman. Every time I talk TBIs, like old home week. Okay.
Yes.
Let me ask you, well, let me get this out of the way first. You know that we're looking in Memphis, Shelby County on establishing a lab that hopefully will help you in your efforts to process evidence. Can you give us an idea of the types of evidence real quickly without getting into detail? And then when you're looking at the average statewide. Average means that some are more, some are less. So what's the outside processing in terms of the most time?
Thank you, Mr. Representative. In terms of overall with the lab, again, our focus on the lab is to get all of our evidence processed 8 to 12 weeks. That's not just sexual assault kits, it's all of our evidence. And so we're working very hard toward that goal. We are making great progress in a number of the areas, and I can share that with you offline where we're at. And then in terms of outsourced testing, actually, we're in really good shape for the most part at least in the Jackson side of the lab, 10.3 weeks on all the outsourced is what our turnaround right now on outsource is. A little more difficult here in Nashville because it was a greater number and we're focused on it. But we're at 53 weeks here in Nashville with that turnaround on outsourced. What that requires is a scientist to take a look at what the lab that we outsourced to did and to verify the information. And so because our scientists here in Nashville have been really focused on getting the current stuff taken care of, the outsource is taking a little longer. But again, as you mentioned, it's averages. So that also says that when something's taking a little longer, it hurts the bottom, number as well. So I think if that answers what you asked.
You got most of it, and we'll talk offline. But the point is that at the end of the day, justice is served if it's delivered quickly. And 12 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever, that's justice delayed. I'm sure you'll agree. And that's both for the accused, the victim, and if there's an innocent person that's in the line of fire, so to speak, then there's justice that needs to be served to that person, but certainly in getting criminals off the street. And the labs process not just DNA rape kits, but everything from clothing to fingerprints, ballistics, et cetera. Just want to make sure. I was trying to get you to make that point for the benefit of the public and the community. And Mr. Chairman, if you let him answer that, and I'm finished.
Thank you, Director.
Yeah, I'll be quick. I would tell you that all testing takes time. It doesn't happen automatic. Although I would tell you in terms of justice, I would tell you that, processing evidence takes time regardless of where the case is. In my experience, 37 plus years in policing, I've yet to see a case resolved in 8 to 12 weeks. And so, yes, there are delays in our system, but I think when you define a quick justice, I think it's dependent, obviously, on our system. And I would love to be able to do it, as it comes in the door, but that's just not possible.
Yeah, thank you, Director. Thank you for being with us today. Without any further questions, comments, we're back into session. I digress. Back out of session. Representative Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just quickly, we've got the issue. We just had yet another school shooting affecting students who live in my district. That highlights one of the big problems we have is being able to find out how this criminal got a hold of this firearm. Are there any suggestions you have that this, or for actions that this legislative body could take to help track firearms or better learn how these criminals are getting a hold of firearms?
Thank you, Representative. And I know this, you're at a hard stop. This is a long conversation. I would just put it at. There are a lot of things being done. I think there's a lot of things being talked about that may not. I get that they feel good and they sound good, but they really have no impact on these issues. There are ways of addressing the issue of school shooters, of mass shooters, and there's a lot of really good documentation provided. I just did some training last week for some folks in East Tennessee on threat assessment and how we prevent these shootings from happening. And so without getting too much into detail, but most of these firearms are being, almost all of them, 90% of the firearms in these cases, in these mass shootings, are picked up from the home. Someone in the home left it unsecure, someone has picked it up and utilized that firearm. And so that's really where they come from. And that's where they're being utilized. And so, and the vast majority of them are legally purchased firearms. And so that's a challenge that further conversation and discussion, I think, is critically needed.
Representative Clemens,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
last call. We're back in session. Clerk, please open the board. Let's take the vote. Moving out with a positive recommendation. There you go. Take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 9 ayes and 0 noes.
Thank you. This moves out to calendar and rules. Thank you, Director. Without any further discussion or business come before this committee, we stand adjourned.